to Jonathan Taylor. Huge hole. He's at the 30. He's going to go. 10, 5, touchdown. Jonathan Taylor made a man miss the line of scrimmage and then runs it into pay dirt in a one-handed INT. Are you kidding me? Kenny Moore.
What a play by Nyheim Hines.
Horseshoe is back, baby. The horseshoe is back.
What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Bringing the Juice Colts podcast. Cody Felger here, along with me again, very special guest, Matt from the Inside the Horseshoe podcast. Matt, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Just pumped for the season, dealing with work, but hey, that it is what it is.
It is what it is. And crazy, man, that yesterday was the first preseason game. So the NFL is officially back now with preseason action kicking off. So Colts obviously next week had their first preseason game against the Carolina Panthers. But Matt, this was day number 8 of week number 2 for the Indianapolis Colts, their third straight practice of full pads. So now the Colts are kind of getting into the swing of things a little bit. You can kind of see a little bit more from some of these guys. There obviously were some guys early on in camp when it wasn't full pads that were showing out or not showing out. And now you're kind of getting an idea of where these players are and where their development is. And so there are some takeaways that obviously we weren't there, but some takeaways from people in the media that we can kind of point to and discuss a little bit. Right. I think the first thing we can talk about, the Colts got a couple more guys off the COVID list, and that was definitely a great thing. They got Xavier Rhodes back, which was the big one. Yes. They got Al-Qadim Muhammad back as well. Those were the two big notable ones. What's your thought on just getting those guys back as well? How big do you think that is to get those guys back?
It's really big, especially having Rhodes back because of how dominant he was for us last year. He really had a great year, great bounce back year. So getting him back, getting him used to everything again is always nice. Muhammad, I don't think he's going to have as much of an impact, but still, just with the defensive line when he's came in throughout the year last year, he always played well. So getting him and just getting everybody just back to, getting used to how everybody plays with each other is always a nice thing. I haven't seen a whole lot of what Muhammad has done so far in preseason. It's only been a day with him, but yeah, still, it's not something I expected, but I do think now with him back, just getting used to everything, he should be able to make more noise as the days go by.
Yeah, for sure. And then Julian Davenport came back as well today off the COVID list. So the Colts get all their guys back off of COVID, which is definitely great to see. It's good to have all those guys back. Some other moves that the Colts had, J.J. Nelson went to IR. They actually waived, surprising to me a little bit, Roland Milligan. They waived him. They also waived quarterback Jalen Morton as well. So Matt, and I think maybe this kind of points to the Colts maybe looking elsewhere in free agency and just kind of seeing the market. Obviously, they brought in Clinton Dix for a workout yesterday. So you got to wonder, maybe the Colts are looking, I don't know if necessarily for the third safety, maybe so, maybe to add some competition to that, but also just more depth on that in the safety room. What is kind of your thoughts on them letting Roland Milligan go?
Honestly, didn't know too much about him going into it. But, it always stinks to see somebody get released. You never want to see that happen, but it's the nature of the game. I was really wanting to see Morton stick around a little bit longer. I really wanted to see him throw that 100-yard pass that he said he could do. Just I think it would have been fun. I don't think he would have made the team. I think it's Ellinger, Eason, and Wentz. That's going to be your 3 quarterbacks. But still, it would have been nice to have him stick around a little longer, just because if he can throw it that far, I would be very curious to see how he would play, maybe not even with first team, but second team, all those guys. I just wanted to really see how he can run an offense and then go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are some of the notable moves the Colts made today. Now getting kind of into practice a little bit, Jacob Eason had, I would say, a decent day from a stat standpoint. From a completion percentage, wasn't great, but honestly, you look at him still playing against a top 10, potentially top 5 defense, now getting back Xavier Rhodes as well. And also you look at the left side of that offensive line, and none of those starters are in right now with Nelson, Kelly, and obviously with Fisher as well. So it's kind of funny, Matt. I've never talked to you about this, but I've talked to Derek and some other guys about this. It seems like Jacob Eason get a little bit too much flack, I feel like. where it's not been perfect. And I've said as much. I want progress, not perfection with Jacob Eason. It just seems like they're a little bit harsher on him than they are the other quarterbacks. And he's playing against the ones. I get it from that standpoint of like, he may be your starter for a couple weeks, but also like, this is week 2 of training camp, right? And people, I don't feel like people are factoring that in enough. What are your thoughts on it just seems like Jacob Eason is just getting like brought through the ringer almost. And it's just kind of weird to me that it seems like it's continuing every single day. I mean, it wasn't the greatest day for Jacob Eason, 9 of 16. Okay, from a completion percentage standpoint, yeah, you'd like to see a little bit better. But he had no interceptions. He threw a nice ball to Zach Pascal in the end zone. So he's showing progress in a lot of ways. Not perfect at all, but he's showing progress, and he's essentially still a rookie quarterback, right, in a lot of ways, playing against this defense. Sorry to keep rambling. What are your thoughts on this whole situation?
Yeah, I think people do need to just chill with Jacob Eason. I mean, we've been so lucky because with training camps, we've had Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck. We had Jacoby Brissett for the year, but everybody thought, okay, Andrew's going to come back at some point when he was going through that, so he didn't really get as much flack. And then you have Phillip Rivers, in a weird offseason. So it feels like we've been, I guess, too what's the word? Like, I can't even think of the word for whatever reason, but it seems like everybody's just used to perfection, or they're used to just this top 10 type of quarterback, at training camp. Then you get Jacob Eason, who's pretty much a rookie, who, he hasn't looked the greatest at times. There's been days he's looked really good, but he's a rookie essentially. He's going up against, like you said, a top 10 defense. I mean, they could be a top 5 defense by how they're looking so far, just with the speed and power and everything. I mean, Kamoko Toure looks great so far. He had that, play during training camp earlier today where he basically just threw Tevy just on the ground. Like, he's looked incredible. So, Eason, of course, I was expecting him not to look like a top 10 quarterback or, whatever. And I would think people would expect that too. I think we need to start really criticizing him once we see him play against other defenses. Because who knows, maybe when Carolina comes to town, Jacob Eason will be like 16 for 16, just killing that defense. And then maybe we'll see him play against, I think they play the Lions this preseason as well, and he'll be killing them and just everybody in preseason. And then let's say he dominates against the Seahawks, then everybody's gonna be like, okay, the defense is just that good, that's why he hasn't looked the greatest. So I do think everybody needs to just relax. Let's let him continue to progress. Let's let him continue to just get through the training camp. He's being thrown in a situation he wasn't expecting to. So I mean, it just seems like people thought, okay, well, Jacob Eason's just going to look incredible. And that's just not going to be the case.
And it shouldn't be. I mean, 4th round pick last year, he wasn't even really that high of a pick, like he was a mid-round pick. And so even Chris Ballard even told people, like, just chill on Jacob Eason, give him some time to develop. Let's not go praising him, saying he's the savior right away. And obviously the Colts felt that way with, deciding to sign Rivers before that and then trading for Wentz this offseason. They feel like he needs some time and needs some work. So it's just kind of funny to me how the narrative kind of changes sometimes when you're just like, what are you expecting? This is like what Chris Ballard has said all along. It's just, maybe it's just for clicks. Maybe it's just for drama. I don't really know. But sometimes it can get a little frustrating when you're like, I just feel like you're picking on him a little bit, unnecessarily picking on him. So, definitely. But it's neither here or there. But one thing that really stuck out, from what Marcus Brady, the offensive coordinator, had to say. Remember last year, he was the quarterback's coach, worked with Jacob Eason for a year. He said one thing that really stuck out was Jacob Eason's growth in progressions, right? So figuring out what defenses are doing and figuring out when he needs to check it down, identifying stuff with the defense. And he said that's a really positive step, something they really wanted to see in Eason's growth. Now, he did admit that Sam Ehlinger is more, right now he's better at doing that, which shouldn't come as a shock because Sam Ehlinger's played in a ton of games in college, whereas Jacob Eason really didn't play in a whole lot of games. So I don't feel like any of this stuff should come as a shock, but it's certainly encouraging to see Jacob Eason just growing in the areas the Colts really feel like he needs to grow in. That has to be really encouraging for just the Colts' confidence in Jacob Eason moving forward, if indeed he is their starting quarterback in the first couple weeks.
Right, because we all knew coming in to this year, Jacob Eason was going to be able to make pretty much any throw. His arm is just it's a cannon, but it was obviously, like you said, there's certain things that are just going to, he's going to learn as he continues to go through training camp. Like he's going to be able to, whether it's reading a defense better than, he can at the moment, or, whatever, it's going to take him some time. And that's also why I think people just need to chillax. So, I mean, I was also expecting Ellinger to look better in certain aspects than Eason too. I think at the end of the day, Eason's the better quarterback, but still, I mean, like you said, this was something I expected as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there is a significant drop off from the 1s to the 2s. Let's not act like it's not that big of a drop off. It is.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it really is. So that's something that always has to be considered, because there's always those preseason heroes or those training camp heroes where you're just like, oh man, Chad Kelly a couple years ago. That's a great example of one where people are like, is he the franchise quarterback? And no, he's not. No. Like it's preseason for an action. He's going against 2s and 3s. Let's just pump the brakes a little bit. We'll say though, for all the Ellinger, stuff we've said, just chill. Like he's looked pretty good against the second team. So, I think it's fair to question. Maybe he should just get a look with the 1s, maybe once every often, see what he's got a little bit. I'm not opposed to that. I just think if we're going to be fair, let's be fair, with this argument. So that's kind of the thought. That's obviously a good thing. Another good thing that stood out, man, Mike Strachan continues to make these wild plays, man. He, against Xavier Rhodes, who by all measures was a top 10 corner last year, he had an incredible catch on the sideline. And Xavier Rhodes just like, what am I supposed to do? And that just, man, that shows you how freakishly talented a guy like Mike Strachan is. What are your thoughts on Mike Strachan and the camp that he's having? Because it sounds like it's been a really, really strong one from Mike Strachan.
I've been a big fan of him ever since he was drafted. I watched his highlights in college, and I mean, he's not playing like Division I talent. He's not going up against Alabama defenses, but still, just seeing what he can do, just with his size and speed, the types of catches he can just catch. It just from the get-go, I was super excited to see him come in and just see what he can do against the defense. And the fact that he's doing it against Xavier Rhodes it just gets me more and more hyped. It seems like every single day that there's training camp, he's always doing something that's just catching everybody's eye. And I really do hope that he'll get a lot of, or maybe not a lot, but he'll get some opportunities once the regular season's here, because if he can do what he's doing right now against any defense, it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, I even tweeted out, I said, there's going to be 31 NFL teams that are going to really regret passing on this kid. Yeah, he's a 7th round pick, but I mean, that doesn't mean he can't make, and I'm not going to say he's making the Hall of Fame, but we've seen 7th round picks go to the Hall of Fame. It's rare, but it's happened. And, he's really been exciting me. Like, he's not the only rookie that's done it, but he's one that's really stood out to me out of everybody.
Yeah. And I know there's going to be somebody in the comments, so I just wanted to clarify. We are not saying that Mike Straughn's going to make the Hall of Fame or go to the Hall of Fame. We're not saying that. We're just saying, like, you never know. Like, there's been undrafted guys that have done it. And he's certainly got the talent to be a dominant receiver, right? But
absolutely,
there is a reason why he was taken in the 7th round. He's pretty raw in a lot of ways, but that's encouraging for sure to see what he's been doing so far. So that's great. It also seems like Nyheim Hines, ever since coming back from that injury a couple of days ago, he's just kind of taken where he left off last year. He's just been absolutely phenomenal again. Seems like all these running backs have been really good. Marlon Mack, obviously off that Achilles injury, looks like he's back to full strength and is making those cuts that we're used to, those patient runs. Jonathan Taylor, I mean, we expected it, but he's had a really strong camp as well. It just seems like all these running backs are looking really good. The people that aren't looking good, unfortunately, and this is kind of a concern that we had, it wasn't as strong before camp, but now the more and more we see it, it's kind of becoming a little bit of a concern for me. I don't know what you feel, Matt, but the left tackle position, it seems like Sam Tevi's getting whipped just about every play you see from him.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that Toure is just so good that he can do that to most left tackles, and just everybody's been able to do that with Tevi. It's not like Tevi's been bad like every single snap. There's been some snaps where he's done well too, but still, it is concerning because you never want to see that happen. You would rather see Tevi throw like Toure to the ground. more consistently, or, Kwity Paye, throw him to the ground. You would rather see that, or at least have it where it's more even. But it seems like the majority of the time it is Tevy that's getting manhandled. So I am concerned, but I'm trying to at least convince myself that no, it's not, Tevy that's playing bad. He's just going up against incredible edge, defenders. So I'm just hoping for, I don't know how long it's going to take for Fisher to get back, but I'm hoping Tevy can at least perform okay at that point. He wasn't, I wasn't as down on him as other people were when we brought him in. He was probably the best offensive tackle that the Chargers had. So, I don't think he's terrible, and I don't think he's going to take a big step or a big drop off. He's 26 years old. So let's just convince ourselves he's entering his prime. He's going to be entering his prime. He's going to look great, guys, in preseason. He'll be fine. Let's not worry about. Haven't heard anything about Davenport yet. I mean, he did come back from the COVID list, but still, let's convince ourselves it's just the Colts defense. It's just that they're just that good.
And let's just convince ourselves that it can't get any worse than it did last year. I mean, that's the truth. It was bad last year. Like Tevy, as much as crap as he's been getting, he is nowhere near as bad as the Colts tackle situation beyond their two starters last year. Like, he is so much better. And if he can just play like an average tackle, I'm good with that for a couple weeks. And that's the hope with him, is that Toure, I mean, people just seem to forget that Toure, when he was fully healthy, he was one of the best pass rushers in the league in 2019. So like this guy's no slouch. This isn't like, a second or third string guy. Like, this is a guy that when he was healthy, he was one of the better edge guys in the league. So just want to pump the brakes a little bit on that. Yeah. It's still early for Tevy. If he's struggling against pretty much everybody in preseason, like if Carolina comes to town, he's still struggling. Okay, then maybe we have a little bit more concern there, but it's still very early for him. You talked about the pass rushers a little bit. Let's talk about them a little bit. It seems like it's been really good for a couple of those guys. We mentioned Toure. Seems like Quity's had a pretty good camp as well, from what I've heard. Same with Ben Banigou. It seems like all these guys have looked really, really good. Haven't heard a ton from Tyquan Lewis, which is kind of surprising. I mean, I think we're all kind of expecting him to maybe take over one of those defensive end positions. Now, it could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. We just haven't heard anything really from Tyquan Lewis. But one thing that was interesting that I just wanted to mention, Matt Eberflus talked about now with full pads on in the pass rush. He said it's on track, it's progressing, but it's never good enough. He says that and the pressure hasn't been, when he started camp, the pressure was it seemed like it was everywhere from everybody. Yeah. And now it's kind of taken not a step back, but it hasn't been as prevalent. And so he's wanting to continue. It seems like it's a work in progress with this pass rush, which is definitely interesting. But from what you've heard in camp from some of these guys, what are your thoughts on that?
It definitely makes me excited, because that was the one thing on our defense that I would say was the biggest need, was our edge. We needed to improve it. And it seems like we did that with Kwity Paye. Toure, like I said, he looks like he did prior to that injury. I mean, he was tearing up Kansas City in that game. He was huge. He was Patrick Mahomes' worst nightmare in that game. He looked really good, and seeing him come back and looking really good is really nice. I would like to hear more about Lewis. I wish he would come up more often than Paye and Toure, but still, I'm pretty happy with our edge presence right now. It should be better this year, and if it can be as good as what it's looking right now, I mean, we could be having a top 5, top 3 defense coming in. And then I'm happy to see Banigou also playing as well as he has too in training camp. I'm just hoping that, carries through into the preseason as well as the regular season. I'm really hoping he can take that next step, and he can go out there and play like a lot of people thought he was going to.
Yeah, I want to see him more against the ones, because kind of like Ehlinger, he's been against the 2s and the 3s and been really good, which is great to see. But like with Ehlinger, I would like to also maybe see him get some run with the ones and see kind of what he can do, because he's been looking really good. Let's see what he does against starters. And I would love to see that. Hopefully in the preseason, we'll see a little bit more of that, and Banigou gets more of a run. But it's been great to see, certainly, from your former second-round picks, who you had a lot of promise, but nobody's really lived up to the expectations, especially Toure and Banigou for different reasons. So
Yeah.
definitely interesting. Will be something that we observe, next week and in the coming weeks before the regular season. One other guy I wanted to mention, EJ Speed has been absolutely great this camp. He is a physical freak. I mean,
Yes.
we talk about how Mike Strawn's a physical freak on the offense. EJ Speed is a physical freak on that defense. I mean, he was a former wide receiver when he came to college, right? They converted him to linebacker. And so he's got, pardon the irony here, but he's got that speed. He does. And it's great to see from EJ Speed. He was very raw, obviously, coming out of Tarleton State when he did. And you saw a little bit of a glimpse of him in that first year, his rookie year in the preseason. You saw him really just absolutely phenomenal, but very raw. And you're like, he just needs a couple years to develop. Now with Anthony Walker gone, EJ Speed has a really good chance to maybe crack this starting lineup. What are your thoughts on EJ Speed?
I've been really happy with how he's been doing as well. Obviously, the speed is a really good thing to see. We definitely need to fill in that spot for Walker. I didn't know if it was going to be him or any of the other guys we got. I honestly was expecting him maybe to be kind of more backup, come in maybe from time to time, but with him playing as well as he has, I mean, he's going to be competing for that spot for sure. I mean, it'd be really nice to see him really get that speed, have him be alongside with Okereke and with Leonard and just see all of them just dominating every single game. Be really nice. He definitely looks like waiting a couple years has benefited him, and it looks like he's, what I would assume Chris Ballard thought he was going to end up becoming.
Mm-hmm. And it'd just be nice to have a nice backup you feel good about.
Yes.
A linebacker that can actually do what Darius Leonard and Bobby Okereke do. You don't have that on your roster besides EJ Speed. I mean, he's probably more physically gifted than both those guys. And that's crazy to say because both those guys are really physically gifted. Absolutely. But if you have another linebacker that, say, obviously you never want injuries to happen, but part of the game is injuries happen. So say, one of those two guys goes out for a game or two. Okay, you just slide EJ Speed over there. You put Zaire Franklin at Sam and you're good. Mm-hmm. It would just be great to have another backup quality option at linebacker because that was it's been a concern for me. And I know it's been a concern from a lot of other people with letting Walker go to Cleveland. It was like, oh, wow. What's the depth look like for this Colts linebacker room? And so to have a guy like EJ Speed to, yes, play Sam and get some run, but also be the primary backup for these guys, that could make a lot of people more at ease with this linebacker group in general. Yeah. One last thing I wanted to mention, Julian Blackman left practice with an apparent knee injury. They wrapped the knee, but Julian Blackman later on, he tweeted out, he said, I'm going to be at practice tomorrow. So Colts fans can all collectively breathe a sigh of relief a little bit because it has been a brutal week for injuries. I mean, every time you see an injury, you're almost like 5 to 12 weeks. Just say it already. Yeah. So it's great to see Julian Blackman was just only nicked up. Will be hopefully back there on practice tomorrow, which will be great. And the Colts have practice obviously tomorrow and Sunday. Then they have Monday off. So a couple days of practice, couple days off, and it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. Are you going down to training camp at all, Matt, this year?
Yes, I will be going the 23rd and 24th.
Okay.
So that should at least give us an idea by that point of who's going to be making the team, what our team's going to look like. So I'm definitely excited to get down there for that. But yeah, I mean, when I heard Blackman got hurt and, had his knee wrapped, I just thought immediately, like you, I was like, okay, 5 to 12 weeks, it's guaranteed it's going to happen because we didn't think Nelson was really that hurt. He had a boot on his foot. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, he'll probably rest for a day. He'll get out there and we'll be fine. And then he's out 5 to 12 weeks. It definitely worries me that he's had now 3 surgeries. That was a little concerning, but knowing how good he's been, even with those surgeries, just makes me, just wonder how good he's going to be when he comes back too. But you had Wentz, obviously. It just felt like something's going to happen. It's like, okay, who's the next guy? Who's going to get hurt next? And then you see Blackman. It's like, oh, great. And it just the guy that really had a breakout year that played with an ankle that wasn't 100% healthy even. Of course he's going to get hurt. That's just how this offseason is going to be. Everybody's going to get hurt. That's just how it's going to be. So it is nice to see him back though. That makes me very, It makes me very happy.
Yes, you talk yourselves into some of these backup guys.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, we'll be fine. And then as more and more guys get injured, you're like, are we going to be fine?
Right.
So great to see Julian Blackman. I mean, very invaluable piece in that safety room. Going to be healthy, hopefully, and that injury is not going to be really anything of concern. So, all right. Well, I think that'll do it, guys, for our recap of training camp. Obviously, out a little bit later than normal. Today was kind of a crazy day for both of us, so we weren't able to get it out till a little bit later. But nonetheless, we are here. We have provided Colts coverage for you guys every day of training camp. We want to continue to do that if we can. So really appreciate all your guys' support. And also check out Matt's channel. He has a lot of good content on there. Matt, where are you at right now on subscribers-wise? Because we want to definitely help you out if we can.
I think I'm at 363 right now.
Okay, well, everybody who's watching this video, go subscribe to Matt's channel. I will put it in the description, so be sure to go check him out. Matt, really appreciate you coming on, brother, talking some ball. It's a lot of fun. It's always a fun topic of conversation every day because there's always new things that arise in training camp. Thankful that you were able to come on and kind of just give your insight on stuff, and it was a fun conversation, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's always a blast to come on here and talk Colts football.
Absolutely. And thank you, everybody who's listening and tuning in. Really appreciate you wherever you are, whether you are in Indiana, whether you're in a different state, whether you're in a different country. We really appreciate all your support. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. And as always, guys, go Colts.